The last element we're going to do is going to be texture. So create a new layer, name it texture, and make sure that if you have space, if you haven't locked it yet, go ahead and do so. Now we're going to do this one a little bit differently than the others because we're not actually going to work on this picture. We're going to work down here and then we'll move our work up. So I'm going to start off by loading my selection. Remember, we saved our parrot selection earlier. So now we're going to go to Select, Load Selection, and choose your parrot or your frog. And you can see where it is selected. Okay. Now, I want to use these same colors that I did here. And at the moment, my red is still my foreground color. So I'm going to click on white, and then notice how I can sample from down here. That eyedropper appears. Click OK, and now I've got those same colors right over here for my foreground and background. So what I'm going to do is I want to add texture, and I want it to be red. I am on the texture layer. We're going to continue by using our brush tool on this. So I'm going to select my brush tool, and I'm actually going to increase the size of it a little bit. It's right around 40. And I'm going to need my brushes panel. So I'm going to go to Window and Brush. Now you're going to notice that one of these over on the left is texture. You can decrease or uncheck rather everything else. Now you have some preset textures here. You also can choose different textures in here. Okay? It's up to you what it is you want. If you choose append, it will add to what's there. So we want to choose two very different textures. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at a couple of these. I'm going to use this one first. And notice that I have the ability to set the scale to big or small, the brightness and contrast, which I'll probably leave that set at 0. And same thing with this. I can adjust the depth of it, and notice it gives you a little preview of what it looks like there. I'm going to reduce the depth greatly because that's giving me a lot more texture or look of texture that I see here. Okay, and once I have the look I want, I can go ahead and ensure I have the right color, ensure I'm on the right layer, and I am simply going to use my brush and I am going to fill it in. Okay, and so that is that texture. Okay, and if I were to hide my space and my original, you would see that. Okay? All right. Then, just like we did last time, we're going to need to inverse the selection. That selects the whole page. I'm going to need to use my rectangular marquee and intersect with the selection. And just be careful, choose over at the left edge and work your way to the bottom right. And then I'm going to reverse so that my other color becomes the foreground color. I'm going to go back to my brush tool and my brush panel, and I'm going to find a different selection. And remember that you can add to your selection, or sorry, not add to your selection, add textures. And you can pick, you don't have to pick the same ones that I am picking. And I'm going to choose a different one. Whoops, that's not actually the one I wanted. I'm going to try nature. And remember that append adds to it. Okay, and then once you choose it, you can play with the amount that you get, and then you can use a brush. And remember that by using the brush, you can take big scribble strokes because it's only going to color what you have selected. And actually, I'm going to undo that last brush tool. I'm going to increase my size by a lot because I think that if I do it in 1 or 2 brush strokes, it's going to create a neater texture there. I like that better. All right, now again, I'm going to hide the layers underneath it so I can compare. I can see that that's 2 very different textures. I can see the colors that I had, so I am going to deselect. Now, this is what I'm going to do. I'm turning my original layer back on. I'm going to get my move tool, and I'm going to use my shift and my up arrow to move this texture layer, the bird that we have here with the texture, move it up so that it sits on top of the image in the original layer. And now that it does, I am going to turn off my original layer. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to, after I save it, because remember that saves it as a Photoshop file, now I'm going to save it as a JPEG because the JPEG will be the one that I upload to my Google site. And you are done with your elements.